Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth Alpha, and the first pass look at the Shadow Priest. And this is the longest testing session I have done so far in the Alpha. Over 4 hours. The entire VOD, of course, will be uploaded to YouTube. If you want to watch all of that, the later half of it is quite mathy. We tested a bunch of different talent builds, figuring out how the in and out Void Form, Void Eruption possibilities work with different talent combinations. I can go over some of that in this video, but it would actually take an hour to condense it down. So, if you want all of that, check out the VOD. The Shadow Priest has seen quite a number of changes. Quite a number of them. The biggest one, right off the bat, being how your sort of builder-spender-ish interaction works with Void Form. And I will say right here at the start of the video, before we get into any of the crazy nitty-gritty madness, you will have less time in Void Forms. Period. Fundamentally less. However, they will happen more often. So the gameplay style will be not as much about just getting to it and staying there, but actually ping-ponging and bouncing back and forth between the Void Form window. Higher rotation changes in the Void Form part, like rotation B, and higher rotation is in part A, where you're building to go into Void Form. The talent combinations and layouts currently, I was told, a lot of the big boy theory crafters right now are talking about how they're not really good, or there's just a lot of stuff to check and how they all play out together. There might be only 2 real builds, one AoE build and one single target build, but hey, could be a lot better than it is on live. So we'll see how that works out. Of course, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button down there in the corner to be notified of all the first and second pass and island adventures and PAX East coverage and dev interviews and live shows, all my good stuff here on the channel, as well as the VODs coming out here. You can also go check out the Twitch live stream where all this stuff happens and you can influence and help us figure out the math live. Azerite gear is out. We're not looking at Azerite gear just yet. Of course, or you can poke me on Twitter in case I have done something horribly wrong and you want to tell me how bad I am at Shadow Priest. That's also fine too. So this video is going to be quite long in comparison to the other ones. I'm definitely foreseeing, as I sit here and record this, a 40-minute video, I imagine, which is fine. We're going to go really slow at the start here because I'm going to explain all the core stuff, so we're not going to get into any gameplay right off the bat. I want to explain all the back end. I have like a page-ish, a little more than a page of notes, which is more than any other spec so far. We'll go through the spell book, we'll go through all the other things, we'll go through the talents, we'll compare and contrast your talents, how they are on live to the current ones, all that good stuff. Wrong key binding for XSplit, I'm sorry. But right off the bat, don't freak out about this, because overall, the functionality of how you play a Shadow Priest is the same. It's just that you're in and out of the Void Form window more often, and what they have done to compare this is they've moved a lot of your damage outside of the Void Form window, a good portion of it, so that you're not going to need to min-max that window for all of your damage now. It may be closer to a 60-40 split versus on live right now, some Shadow Priest is more of like an 80-20. 80% of your damage being in the Void Form window and 20% being outside, because it sucks to be outside the Void Form, but to get back in the Void Form window, right? So, Shadow Form and Void Form have been updated, first off, to be spell power increases. So Shadow Form is 10% spell damage, not shadow damage, and the 10% physical DR. The significance of this, and Void Form is another 10% spell damage you deal. This will now scale with racials, most likely on the back end, as well as trinket procs that are just some School of Magic's damage. That simplifies a lot of this goopy nonsense math that happens sometimes because of shadow damage math versus spell damage math. So that's a slight change. The big also thing here is that the per stack of Void Form is only 0.5%, currently 0.5% scaling haste every 1 second you're in Void Form, which on live it is 1% per stack. And also the spell damage modifier on live is 20% down to 10. So the haste scaling on Void Form is less. The damage scaling on Void Form is less. However, your Mastery Madness now increases the damage of Shadow Word Pain and VT and Mind Blast and Mind Flay and Mind Seer and Void Eruption and Void Bolt. All of the core damaging abilities you use as a Shadow Priest, and yes, I said Mind Seer, more on that later, are all amplified flatly by your Mastery. The current version of your Mastery is so limiting, it's terrible. What even is it again right now? I forgot after all the testing we've done today. Madness on live is just Pain, Touch, and Void Bolt. Now it is everything. Again, Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, Mind Blast, Mind Flay, Mind Seer, Void Eruption, and Void Bolt. All scale with your Mastery at the same percentage. So the potential for you caring about Mastery definitely rises quite significantly because it's affecting all of your base damage. And because the Void Form haste scaling is lessened now, and the spell damage modifier in that is lessened, the Void Form window does not have to be min-maxed as much. However, there's plenty of min-maxing that we'll go through. Oh my gosh. There's plenty still, of course. That's how the spec plays. Void Bolt still has the very short cooldown that does shadow damage, amplified, of course, by your Mastery. It only increases the dots by 2 seconds, your VT and your Shadow Word Pain on the target by 2 seconds, not 3 seconds. So again, a slight reduction in power there. This does mean there are some cases where you have to recast your dots in Void Form. This, however, is completely fine because of some cooldown changes across the board that make it totally okay because that's how the global cooldowns will work. There will be a crazy priority list that someone will make up that you can work together through for all your Shadow Priest needs. That will be you cast this, then this, then this, then this, then this. It'll probably have some long list or some tell me when or some weak order to help you walk through it. That'll be definitely a thing. Before I go AFK here, let me make sure I stand up on my priest. I cannot transmog Naifu because it's a one-handed freaking mace they give you. That's why you can't see Naifu right now. Shadowy apparitions are the same as they currently are. Shadow and Pain crits give you a apparition, and they float through the target and be all spooky-like, right? Void Eruption. We'll start here. We're going backwards right now, right? Void Eruption has a longer cast time than it does on live. It's 2 seconds on live. It is now 2.5 seconds reduced by haste. And the shadow damage it does, the hit from Void Eruption is basically two Void Bolts fly out, hit each target that is able to be hit. But you're reading ahead of me right now. Currently on live, you have to tab target a dot onto everything, and then you Void Eruption. That has been changed. When we go to the gameplay stuff, I'll show you, of course. Now, the target you're attacking that you cast Void Eruption on, everything within 10 yards of that target gets hit with the Eruption. There's no need to put any dots on anything. You just cast Void Eruption, you send out all the little Void Bolts, 2 Void Bolts hit each target within 10 yards for that full total amount of shadow damage. That's it. Blammo. It is 10 yards around the target versus the fact that right now you can put a bunch of dots on things and your Void Eruption goes everywhere, but that's a bit ridiculous. This version is quite easier to work around also because it's 90 insanity, not 100. However, there are going to be some tweaks here and there to being at 100 insanity, either from PvP talents or mobility talents or whatever have you. But 90 gives you the window that you can get to it, recast your dots before you go in, then cast Void Eruption because you'll want to pandemic your dots before you go in anyway because of the new dot mechanic. Because that is, as I'm going to hear, Shadow Word Pain only lasts for 14 seconds, still generates insanity on cast, but it is a reduction in how long the spell lasts. And Vampiric Touch only lasts 21 seconds, down from 24. It only heals you for 30% of the damage done as well. It's a slight tweak in how the healing scales there. Everything else is the same. It generates insanity, has the horror effect on it as well. So that's a big change overall, right? There are other big changes to go over here real quick. So the cooldown of Powered Shield, this also affects the Discipline Priest now. Discipline Priest has no cooldown on the Powered Shield. You have a cooldown on your Powered Shield, and in this build, they did nerf Body and Soul to only occur every 6 seconds. So if you've watched the Discipline video, you realize that that was ridiculous, that you could just spam shields and run around like crazy. 6-second internal cooldown on Body and Soul, so we knew that was coming. But for the Shadow Priest, because the cooldown is reduced by your haste, you will not get a Body and Soul every cast, only every other-ish, basically. So keep that in mind. But it's still very much there as a possibility. Vampiric Embrace was buffed. The coefficient on it and the duration is the same, but it now is a 2-minute cooldown. The nearby heal is actually 40 yards, even though the word nearby in World of Warcraft terms means 8. But I have put it in my notes to have that fixed, hopefully. So it is a 40-yard heal around you, but every time a single target damaging effect ticks, it'll pick one ally and heal them for 40% of it, like boom, 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 like whack-a-mole. But 2-minute cooldown from 3 minutes is really nice. Silence was updated to be a 4-second silence and a 4-second spell school lockout opposed to the live version of 5 and 3. So it's been normalized across the board. It's a blanket lockout for 4 seconds, slightly nerfed down from 5, but the non-player lockout is 4 seconds against the spell school because it's a 45-second freaking cooldown. At least has a little bit more synergy there. Shadow Form of 4 has still the same benefit. Shadow Fiend baseline gives you Insanity now, and it lasts 15 seconds base. I know it lasts longer on live because of your artifact traits, but at least it's not 12 seconds. So it is 15 seconds base, and it gives you Insanity each time it smacky smacks. And of course, will auto-attack faster based on your haste. Went over Shadow Word Pain already. Shadow Mend still has the same mechanics that it does on live right now. It actually heals really, really good. This might be one of the best heals in the game on a DPS spec that I've seen right now. Granted, it does have the half of the healing goes into that dot, but any damage you take removes the dot, basically, because it's such a tiny dot. But keep that in mind. Shackle Undead had its mana cost increased in this build. Exactly. Resurrection, Purify Disease, Psychic Scream is a 1-minute cooldown still. Baseline. Powered Shield, Powered Fortitude. Baseline for all priests. Mind Vision still here. Mind Seer comes back, and when we go into the gameplay section, you'll see how it works. It generates Insanity over the duration per target hit. It ticks 4 times, and it ticks over 3 seconds. 2.5 right now is because reduced by haste. The way it tracks your targets is if you cast on one target, you will gain 1, and then go to 3. Or no, you go 1, 2, and then 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 5. I believe that's what it was. 1, 2, 3, 5 Insanity. It backloads your Insanity because of how the haste scaling works. So letting it tick to its fullest, depending on target cap, will be a thing you have to pay attention to. Overall, it feels really good to be able to spam Insanity in the Void form window because it gives you so much Insanity for lots of targets, and you get the damage up, of course, while you're in there, and it casts faster and faster and faster with more haste. So it does feel good to be back. The current version with your Mind Flayed, Dot, Seer, garbage, it's gone. Gone. Mind Flay just does the ticking filler damage and still generates the Insanity over time. Still has the 50% slow, though, which is huge. Because the CC kits across the board from everyone have been nerfed and changed, you still have 50% snare on your channeled spell, which I think has to stay that way because it can be interrupted, right? It has to be channeled, etc. Mind Control is still here. One thing about Mind Control, Shadow Priest lost Dominant Mind. At least currently. It's gone. You can't make a pet. Only Discipline Priests have Dominant Mind, which may or may not be a thing, but Discipline got a huge bump in its Mythic Plus toolkit. Shadow Priest toolkit is still totally fine. We'll go over that more a little bit, but holy crap, that's interesting. Mind Blast cooldown was reduced from 9 seconds to 7.5. There still is the Void form Mind Blast reduction, but it's only 1.5 seconds because, again, the base reduction's been down from 3 seconds on live, so keep that in mind. It does still desync Mind Blast and Void Bolt. That Void Bolt will always come off cooldown before Mind Blast. So you will be bolting and then blasting, depending on your haste plateau there. But that is still the case. It just means that in the base rotation, you can actually Mind Blast a little more often to, again, build back to the window and be back inside of the Void form window. And also, of course, Void Eruption more often means more AoE damage. The Insanity on that was changed, I think, slightly. Yeah. Insanity on live right now is 15. It goes down to 12, but the cooldown went from 9 to 7.5, and of course, minus 1.5 more in the Void form window. Smoothing out the outside rotation is basically what's happening here. Massive Spell copped a huge nerf by getting added 30 seconds to the cooldown there, which is really ridiculous. Levitate's the same. Leap of Faith, you'll see here, is now baseline for all priests. So Shadow Priest can now also save someone or troll someone. Pick your poison. You know, I'm not the one that's going to kick you out of the raid group if you troll the raid leader. Fade, of course, is still here. Dispersion is here. It does not have the heal attached to it like you're used to on live. It does, of course, not... it stops your insanity from draining. I did not, and I will not show off testing dispersion drain stopping in this video because I think it's your only defensive. Using it for an offensive purpose is kind of your choice. Being way more seasoned at Shadow Priest than I am. I'm not going to show that off in this video. So there are ways to, of course, extend the Void Form window by dispersing, but I will not show that here, but it still works. And then Dispel Magic, your offensive Magic Dispel is still there. So, all of that out of the way, what does it look like? What does the Shadow Priest look like? Yes, I know I'm writing the trike. Why not? Also, hi, what's up, Brutosaur? The Shadow Priest feels like it definitely has a very single target focused build and a very AoE focused build. I'm going to jump right over and put together an entire build here and show you what a Surrender to Madness window looks like because I'm locked into the cooldown for 4 minutes after using it. And because you probably want to know about S2M right off the bat, right? Does it still kill you? Does it still work? Does it blah, blah, blah? You know, S2M is a huge huge part of the Shadow Priest toolkit right now. Used to be and then died because it was nerfed like 17 times into the ground. So we'll start here with S2M. 4-minute cooldown. All of your insanity generating abilities generate double insanity, 100% more, and you can cast while moving for 1 minute. Let me be clear about that too. It lasts for 1 minute, period. You can be in S2M as basically a debuff for 1 entire minute. After the minute expires, you will take damage equal to 90% of your max health and cannot generate insanity for 30 seconds. You can use Powered Shield to absorb this damage. You can disperse the damage. Both work just fine. The thing here is that S2M has quite a number of different applications now. You can use it to build into your window, build up to 20, 25 stacks, and then just as you casually leave Void Form, you'll still have S2M to rebuild right back, re-Void Eruption, and go right back into the rotation. Instead of just fighting it. Now, the 2 ways to do it, I'm going to show you the fighting it style right here off the bat. So, S2M, we're going to take this with Power Infusion. Only Shadow Priest has Power Infusion. It's 25% haste and a 2-minute cooldown for 20 seconds. It also increases all insanity generation by 25%. It's quite good. We will also take Shadow Crash, even though I did not test with this to see if I could actually do it properly, but I will mess it up on screen for you right here just because. We will also keep Twist of Fate just as a showing it off that it got nerfed. Twist of Fate is very much a execute ability at 35% health. When you deal damage to someone below that, you'll gain 10% increased damage for 8 seconds. On live right now, it's 20% for 10. Keep in mind, of course, the all overall item squish, 10% damage for 8. The duration reduction doesn't matter for execute, but it matters for cheesing mobs that you pull the snail with you in Eye of Azshara, right? I'm looking at you, Shadow Priests, that do this. So that is the case with Twist of Fate. It has been cut down. We're going to take Misery in this case, which is Vampiric Touch, also applies Shadow Word Pain. And we will go over to Shadow Word Void, which is your legendary belt, which gives you 2 charges of Mind Blast, now called Shadow Word Void, slightly increases the cooldown, increases the damage, and gives you 15 insanity base with the 2 charges. So, I'm going to pop S2M to build to the window and then try to stay in Void Form as long as possible. But when you leave Void Form, it doesn't kill you. When S2M expires, remember, that's when it deals damage to you and almost kills you. But now, it's on the global cooldown, so watch the global. We will cast. I'm just going to cast random spells here to build to show you the difference in how fast you do build up to it. We'll recast our dots, and we'll go into Void Form. Immediately do a Void Bolt. Do one of those, do one of these, Void Bolt again. Around 20 stacks, maybe? I will try to... 18, I'll probably get to hit my Shadow Fiend here, I think. Let's do Shadow Fiend now. I'm gonna hold. Whoop, I missed one there. I'm gonna hold on to Pain Suppress. Oh, there we go. Or Power Infusion rather. There we go. Fill the bar back up. There we go. There we go. There we go. Recast my dots and do that. Oh, there we go. What was that? That was probably, I wasn't looking. You'll tell me. That was probably pretty damn close to or right around 39 stacks, which is about as far as I got on the testing as well. Here's the damage. Yeah. But I was casting again right there at the end and regained enough insanity because it was at the end of S2M's 100% window. Yeah, there we go. You can go back into a void form. That's the other thing you can do here. You can go back into a void form before S2M expires to at least be in a void form that ticks down that you cannot stay in and extend the duration of, because again, you lose insanity generation for 30 seconds after it ends. That is fine. The issue that people have with this is that, do you lose too much damage for 30 seconds after when you can't go back into a void form? But the amount of damage you'll gain from being in that S2M window for that long is going to, I would imagine, override the loss of 30 seconds of void form. But that's it depending on if you do the fight style. If you fight, stay in as long as you can. Which I don't know if that's going to be the ideal purpose. Because if you actually just build, spend, and sort of trickle out and go right back into it, you get more void eruptions versus one void eruption, maybe two if you really aggressively attack this with power infusion, right? And there's min-maxing in there because as I'm talking and recording this live to you, there is a whole section, like half hour, 40 minutes, where I did testing of this on the VOD, where I tried different organizations. Like, do I Void Bolt first? Do I Shadow Word Void and delay the Void Bolt, which always turned out to be worse. So you're going to be hitting Void Bolt and then a Shadow Word Void in this case. I will open up with saying that Shadow Word Void, Shadowy Insight, and Fortress of the Mind are all so close together in functionality that it depends on what you want to play. These are all within 2 stacks of each other on my current character. I will caveat as well and say I only have 19% haste as a goblin on this test character. 190 eye level is about 890 on live. 19% haste baseline is not very good, especially because the haste scaling in void form is only 0.5 per stack. That's a very loud hunter. So that is the thing to keep in mind. But as I went over at the beginning of the video, you're going to have this rotation where you're going to Void Bolt, Mind Blast, or Shadow Word Void, and you have roughly a second, 1 global cooldown between your next Void Bolt. So the rotation with Shadow Word Void evens out a little better because you have 2 charges, and it gives you that charge recap where you're not wasting any time on a recharge when you just have Mind Blast. So Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, refresh your dots. Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, Mind Flay for 1 tick, Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void is very possible. At a certain amount of haste, I didn't cast any Shadow Crashes there because I got overwhelmed. At a certain point, you'll be able to do Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, Shadow Crash. Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, refresh your dots. Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, X. A tick of Mind Flay, right? Or casting your Shadow Fiend. All those little things happen in that extra global cooldown there. So how this will work out and what the best build for Sword of Madness, I have no idea. There's so much that happens in this window of time. Do you use it multiple times? Or do you use it once? And then fight it, and then get right back into another void form, and then stay, and you be in that as long as you can, but then S2M ends, and then that void form will go away. And then you're without generation for 25, 20 seconds, whatever it is. I'm not sure. Better Shadow Priest will figure this out than I will. But Power Infusion, Sword of Madness, maybe Shadow Crash, maybe Shadow Word Death. Again, that 1 global cooldown you have there too, you're going to be able to like Void Bolt, Death, Void, Void Bolt, Death, Void, Void Bolt, Death, Dots, Void Bolt, Mind Flay, Void, etc. Right? Got this very priority-based list that you'll go through because Shadow Word Death is now just a talent, but only usable on 20% health. Again, Twist of Fate could work here, but you'll have 2 dots to reapply, but you can just weave in the dots in that 1 second extra time frame because they always are going to desync. Shadow Word Void is going to desync by about a second and a half or so, 1.8 seconds. And Shadow Word Pain, or Mind Blast will desync by a little bit less. Mind Blast is at 6.32 versus the 7.59 right now. But again, the cooldown window gives you the 2 charges, so you could actually go back and forth and do, at high enough haste, Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, refresh your dots, Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, etc. It'll refresh that fast. But having 19% haste right now is a problem. I wanted to show S2M off real quick at the beginning. Now I'm going to bring up this little picture of your live talents. As you can see, many things have changed. There's quite a number of talents that have moved, shifted, or removed completely, which lead to a number of different possible builds outside of the S2M window. So we'll look at the other 2 right now. The other 2 are the other version of single target, which we did test on live quite a bit. We'll keep Misery. We'll go to Fortress of the Mind, which is the 10% more damage on Mind Blast and Flay and 20% more Insanity on both of those abilities. We'll take Mind Bender, which is 6 Insanity per auto attack for 15 seconds and a minute-long cooldown. We will keep Misery again, like we said. This doesn't really matter. Let's take Auspicious Spirits, which is the double damage on your Shadowy Apparitions and 2 Insanity when they deal damage, which does scale with more targets, of course. I just don't want to... I can't test Death, and I forgot about Shadow Crash, so let's forget about it right now. And this build is somewhat similar to what you see on live, because you're going to be able to delay your decay. And again, I'm not going to show off any dispersion decay nonsense, because I'm just not going to do that right now. But you'll be able to build a little faster. We'll refresh our dots before we go in. And then here we go. So with this, let me actually put Void Torrent on my bars. How about that one? You will not be able to cast 2 Void Torrents. It does the same thing it does on live within, within 1 window. You'll be able to cast 1. I did not cast that properly, I don't think. What was that, 27? Okay, it's pretty average. I was getting 28 stacks with Fortress of the Mind, 26 with Shadowy Insight, and 28, 27 with Shadow Word Void. These are all really close. You always want to put up the Mind Bender before you want to stall, refresh your dots, hit him with a Void Bolt, and then Void Torrent for 4 seconds. You lock your time. But again, because 4 seconds only equals 2% haste, not 4% haste, it is quite a bit of a difference in damage. Just because of how much time you delay. But again, if you Void Torrent into Dispersion while your Mind Bender is smacking away, that'll obviously add 6 more seconds or 3% more haste between the 2 of them, which please feel free to try. But this build, this style, is quite similar to how you are on live. Now, well, I guess I'll take the belt real quick. Let's get out of combat. We'll take Shadow Word Void. Now, this is more like what you'd have on live because you have 2 charges of Mind Blast. So this is a little bit more what you're used to. We'll Pandemic, we'll Eruption, and we'll go to town. Wasting some Insanity off the pull here just because it's kind of just whatever. Once the haste starts stacking, we'll refresh here. I will Mind Bender early-ish. 1 more of those. We're going to do 1 more of these, and then we'll stall at 50. Right into a Bolt. Right into a Shadow Word Void. Twice. Nope. Well, 1 more. Go back into it again. Almost enough. 27, 28. So 28 stacks. So that's where I get the 28 from. That's almost 29, like half the GCD or something like that, but that's what you see there. But that's sort of how long you'll stay in your Void form. But you build to it so much faster, right? We'll build to it right now. So the rotation is very much that you probably want 2 stacks of Shadow Word Void going in, maybe 1. We'll refresh, go in again. Oh, that sound effect is so good. It almost makes me want to play a Shadow Priest just for that sound effect. We'll refresh our dots, go with one of these, with one of those. We'll Mind Bender and we'll freeze. A little more aggressively at 14 here. That does give us enough time to get 2 stacks back. Dot refresh on the global there for that one. Go with this. 28 stacks most likely. 28, 29. It's actually a new record, barely. So that's what you'll look like with the Mindbender Void Torrent pause window. Again, you could weave Shadow Crashes in here for the on-demand 20 insanity, of course, that works. Or Shadow Word Death when you're doing the execute window for the 15 on the global there. So this rotation would still have a little slower because you're not going to have as many stacks. Still have the Bolt, Shadow Word Void, Shadow Word Death, or X in that extra window. You're always going to be Bolt Blast or Blast Bolt, depending on where the rotation is, right? The damage of Shadow Word Void is the exact same, I believe, as Void Bolt. Slightly higher. So both Mind Blast and Shadow Word Void are both slightly higher, but Void Bolt is an instant with a lower cooldown, so you will get more Void Bolts off during a Shadow Form window. But you'll happen more often, right? It'll be more often. Now, the Mindbender Void Torrent combo is usually every third. About every third rotation, you would do that. So it gives you this one, depending on your haste, of course, right? Gives you one or two that are sort of standard. You'll go in, go out, 20, 25 stacks or whatever. Those stacks, of course, will increase as you gain more base haste that scales with your gear. But as it is right now, I can't stay any longer in this because I only have so much haste. We'll put this up right now so you can see it. I refreshed early there. That's probably fine. I'm on the global there. We'll actually Mindbender here. We'll do one more of those and we'll freeze at 14 again. Yeah. Instantly into a bolt, into a void. So you see how much slower your haste does scale up. Granted, I only have, again, 19% baseline. That 1 second global there, and it fell out. 28 again. Not even looking at it, but still gave 28 stacks. So, and again, I was getting 28 stacks with Fortress and 26 with Shadowy Insight, depending on procs. So, that's about what that is. That build, that style, which is sort of similar to live. I didn't really go over Shadowy Insight. It's the same as it is on live, but they changed it from a chance to an RPPM system. It's 3 times haste, I do believe, right now on the database. So it could be amazing. You can go into your Void form with a instant Mind Blast, so you can Void Bolt, Mind Blast, and then if you get procs, then that alleviates some cast time to global cooldown, but not a lot. That's why it was slightly less. But the fact that these are within 1 or 2 stacks of Insanity is ridiculous. Or Void form, rather. They're all really close. I just think a lot of people like the Shadow Word Void / Belt playstyle from live, so that's what I've been testing with a lot today. All right. The other build is the AoE focused build. And we will take all these. So we'll go back to Fortress of the Mind for the increased Insanity generation, mostly on Mind Blast. We will take the other talent in this tier, which is Dark Void. Dark Void makes your Void Eruption apply Shadow Word Pain to all targets hit. And remember, Shadow Word Void hits all targets within 10 yards of the target you cast it on. We'll keep Auspicious Spirits because we're going to be spreading a whole bunch of Shadow Word Pains. We'll take Lingering Insanity, which is the same as it is on live. The tooltip will fool you a little bit, though. The tooltip when you're in Void form is showing you each individual stack, but divide that by 2, and that's your 1% per. So if it says you have 28 stacks, I only have 14% haste because each stack is 0.5. Remember that. So Lingering Insanity will actually tell you the 1-to-1, whereas Void form tells you the 2-to-1 because it's showing you each individual stack. And Legacy of the Void now is that Void Eruption's cast time is reduced by 40%. Maybe cast anytime your Insanity level is 60 or higher. So you'll see right there that that's 4 targets. 4 times 5 over the course of the duration is 20. It does scale with all targets with Mindseer. But Mindseer builds very quickly. But again, you want to build with a Mind Blast in there too. I'm not casting my dots preemptively here because I want you to see that all those get hit with a Shadow Word Pain. And I don't really think you want to cast anything else besides just Mindseer in this window. You're going to cast your Void Bolt, of course. But you're going to fall out of this rotation pretty quickly. Go right back to hitting that Mindseer, right back to hitting that Mind Blast. Probably want to tab a couple of targets with some Vampiric Touches there and go right back into Wah. So this is very much an AoE-focused multi-dot synergy. And the overall build will probably work best on trash packs that are going to live a while. A bit of lag there. So you have Dark Void. Every eruption you cast, which will happen more often with Legacy of the Void, always puts Shadow and Pain on there. This, of course, works single target, because you won't never have to recast Shadow and Pain. There's actually, with the Mindbender Void Torrent build, you never recast Shadow and Pain ever. You just cast VT. Because Shadow and Pain will pandemic when you go into Void form, and then by the time you exit and leave it again, you'll just rebuild and it'll cast it again by itself. You may cast it here and there in the rotation, but overall, it alleviates a lot of extra globals, but so does Misery, right? But Misery's change to Dark Void, Misery is very much about like a council fight. Obviously spread targets, so you can't get the Void Eruptions cleave from Shadow and Pain. Versus, again, Dark Void giving you the very real possibility where you just spam Mind Seer and Void Bolt in the window, because not only will it scale with targets, you also get all the additional benefit of having all the Shadow and Pains out there. And you probably want to tab through the targets and Void Bolt different ones to add the extra 2 seconds, if that's important or not. I'm not sure if it would be, but you want to, probably focus the caster or whatever. And we're back. I take Forces of the Mind for this because it does make the build a little bit faster when you weave in that Mind Blast. But overall, it's very easy to just Mind Seer during the Void form window, because you have the scaling haste and, of course, the 10% more damage done. I'm gonna get right back out to it. We'll cast that Mind Blast. There we go. One more cast, then we're back into it again. There we go. And with more base haste, you're going to be going back and forth in this window for a while. And because you keep some lingering sanity from after the fact, which again, more base haste, you'll have more lingering sanity leaving this form to then get you right back to it again. Cast another one of these. Oh, one of those, sorry. How about one of these? So the on-demand AoE rotation to keep Void Eruptioning and keep spreading Shadow and Pain is very much there. The extra cleave damage from Auspicious Spirits will be there, of course. Lingering Sanity gives you the option to rebuild faster, to again get right back to Legacy of the Void, to blow up more mobs with Void Eruption. And those are like the 3 builds that we've really come across here. The utilization of different ones together, I'm not sure, because some of these talents just fit really well together and not apart. Like the Mindbender Void Torrent synergy is very much there. Void Torrent won't really work with Power Infusion very well, because you're casting this and it can't cast any faster, and it locks your Insanity generation anyway, and you're going to Void Torrent into a dispersion most of the time with Mindbender, so you don't want PI, but PI could work with this build too, because Power Infusion will make you go even faster in and out of the Legacy of the Void window, and if you use it in one of the windows, you're going to get more Insanity generation, so you can get more Lingering Insanity. So that's a possibility there, right? But I don't think it's as good as PI and S2M. You saw that at the beginning. That's just ridiculous. And then Shadow of Death obviously has a direct synergy with Twist of Fate, being an extra thing to do in the execute window, and a GCD to give you Insanity instead of having to actually physically cast the spell. Twist of Fate again got nerfed, but these two compete with it now, depending on how you want to spread your dots, less GCDs, or want the execute window. But again, you can cast around it. But that is all the core ability updates currently right now for the Shadow Priest. I think there's definitely 3 different builds. There's sort of this cruise control build, there's a very AoE-focused build, and then, of course, there's S2M. Your other utility options here are Last Word, which reduces the cooldown of Silence by 15 seconds. So it takes it down to a 30-second cooldown for your Silence. This is a PvP talent, I believe, that was rolled forward. You have Mind Bomb, which was changed. Mind Bomb replaces Psychic Scream, which still does on live. Excuse me. A lot of talking today. 4 hours of testing. After 2 seconds, or if the target dies, it unleashes a Psychic Explosion, which causes the enemies in an AR radius to be feared for 5 seconds. It is no longer a stun. And yes, it will, of course, break on a lot of damage. Light damage won't break it, but you Mind Blast that target afterwards, and it's going to be broken. It's definitely less powerful. But again, AoE stuns in BFA have all been reduced and changed and worked on, so there aren't as many flagrant AoE stun rotations as possible. It's still an AoE interrupt, because even if the fear hits for half a global, it'll still interrupt casts. It also means you can fear twice as often, even just in PvP situations, because you can just fear every 30 seconds instead of every minute. But then you have Psychic Horror, which does not replace anything. So you keep Silence on a base cooldown. You keep Psychic Scream on the 1 minute cooldown. Psychic Horror is probably too strong right now. It's a 45-second cooldown, ranged 30-yard, 4-second stun. It might need to be nerfed to a 3-second stun. Still be powerful. Still be that like, hey, get out of here, or hey, here's a a ranged stun from a Shadow Priest. But the fact that you keep fear means that you can very clearly fear bomb someone in PvP into a Psychic Horror, into a Silence. And in the realm of trying to minimize the CC chain madness, that is a lot of cooldown, because one's a stun, one's a disorient, and one's a silence. They're all on different diminishing returns as far as I know. I don't know PvP. Let me know in the comments if I'm totally wrong here. But that's real strong. But again, you lost your permanent pet mind controlling ability, which is really good in PvP, or in PvE rather, sorry. Versus this change to PvP CC, I guess. Let me know. I'm not sure. Again, Body and Soul. Mania. I went over sort of how you want to stay at high insanity for certain things. And we're on the topic of PvP right now. So Mania is slightly buffed, but the wording is the same, where the higher your insanity, the more passive movement speed you have. So up to 35% movement speed based on current insanity. So at 100 insanity, you have 35% movement speed. At 0, you have 0. It scales up linearly. But I could see this being really troll in PvP, even though I'm a goblin, because just never spend your insanity and run around like this the entire battleground. Hello? What? Because your insanity doesn't go away until you're way out of combat and you just dot someone up in PvP. You're like, whoop, back to it. Woohoo! Do that. There we go. So that's really strong. It's 33% on live, 35 now, but that's just silly versus Body and Soul. But again, you're going to want to spend your insanity, right? Obviously, I get it. Unless there's some situation you don't. And last but not least, I think the most ridiculous change to the utility toolkit of the Shadow Priest is Sand Lane. Now, it does compete with Mania and Body and Soul, but let's be real. It reduces the cooldown of VE by 45 seconds and increases its healing done by 25%, which rounds out to a 50% heal for 15 seconds on a, what is that, like 115 cooldown. Excuse me? Also, yes, I just healed myself for 6,000 with a Void Eruption on 4 targets, because it's all single target damage. And I still have Dark Void, so this is so strong. I'm scared to think they won't re-nerf VE's healing cooldown to 3 minutes and then put like a minute on this and make it a 2-minute cooldown. This is really good. It may be less effective in raids, but islands, PvP for you and a small group around a defense point or whatever, arenas, battlegrounds, again, the small points, and then, of course, dungeons. VE that often, if you're like AoE spec'd, again, you got Dark Void spread, you got your Auspicious Spirits popping off, you're going in and out of Void Form even faster. You can probably do 2 Void Form eruptions in one 15-second window if you wanted to be really aggressive about it. That's a lot of raid party-ish healing that was definitely cut down in Legion because you either had to have, what was it, the Helm and the talent to even make it worth it. So they've definitely given you a little bit of that power back in Sand Lane here. But The Shadow Priest has a lot of changes. There's also a floating candelabra right there. Quite a lot of changes that has definitely happened. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Shadow Priest if you play a Shadow Priest on live right now. Because I don't. These numbers are also amplified by 100,000%. Don't freak out. Just doing it for fun. Because I think this is a lot of positive potential. Oh, I didn't take... Oh, crap. I didn't take Mindbender. Oh, well. Just hitting buttons. Let's see how many stacks I can get real quick here. The power in the different builds, hopefully, have some diversity, and you're not just playing the same damn build all the time. But we'll have to wait and see how that works. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I get it. Again, and again, and again. And a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit, no. Oh. Yo, 38, 39, 38. All right, whatever. Almost 39. I derped a little bit. I didn't take Mindbender. So, well, not Mindbender. Duh. That's for this one. I didn't take Shadow Crash. So, there's definitely a window. Shadow Crash in PI and S2M's amp is going to be like 46 insanity, I think, on the cast. And you can couple it so that it lands when you Void Bolt because of the travel time. So you fill your bar back up instantly, right? So there's definitely some wiggle room there to get 40 stacks, but I'm not going to try that right now. I got 39 so many times on the testing stream. Shadow Priest. Your first time here, if you enjoyed all of my ranting and walking through the entire Shadow Priest, multiple different builds, feel free to subscribe to the channel here. Check out the Twitch live stream. Links in the description box below. Check out the VOD if you want to see all the different builds in action in multiple different scenarios and a whole bunch of talking back and forth with chat, figuring that all out. Oh my goodness. Looks pretty interesting right now, even though apparently it doesn't, according to the community. People were all bent out of shape about it, but I think this looks quite healthy compared to the current iterations that you have on live right now. Let me know. Comments down below. I will see you all for Demon Hunter next, right here. Oh boy, Shadow Priest. I don't even, my goodness.